Jason, I had stated a number of times in the last several weeks as various conference schedules were being released that this Big 12 schedule intrigued me more so than any other schedule by far for obvious reasons. You've got Oklahoma and Texas still in the fold. You have 4 new teams joining the conference. And just to see how the approach would be, because we would have to say that the Big 12 schedule in the past, over the past 10 years since Texas A&M and Missouri left, was the most anticlimactic schedule release, just looking for where would the dates be placed, and is there a particular difficult stretch, or 4 home, 5 away, or 5 home, 4 away. But besides that, it was the one true championship format where everybody played everyone. Well, now we've got 14 teams playing this upcoming fall, and so everyone has 13 possible opponents, but they only play 9 conference games, so everybody misses 4 possible opponents. Therefore, there could be some discrepancy. There will be discrepancy in regards to difficulty of schedule, and just to see how they chose to integrate Houston, BYU, UCF, and Cincinnati. We'll, of course, look at Oklahoma's schedule here first and foremost. Let me pull it up, and you can dissect it from there. I will let everyone know that we did a Big 12 schedule release yesterday afternoon. So if you want to catch the 2 hours that we did with the call-in show, it's posted right here on the Oklahoma channel. But I know that Oklahoma opens against one of the newcomers, Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma actually plays 3 of the 4 new teams in the conference, with as you mentioned, opening at Cincinnati, then they host UCF, and then they go to BYU next to the last game of the year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, regular season wise. So yeah, I think interesting. Obviously, there's going to be some tie-ins with UCF and Oklahoma with Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Levy. Thing I think that's kind of a situation that'll have a little bit of a storyline to it. You know, with what they have together and from a past perspective. And then Oklahoma has played Cincinnati, and then previously they had a home and home situation with them a few years ago. So I think that'll be an interesting game as just to kick off the Big 12 season as well. I think one of the other things is looking at the teams that Oklahoma misses with this. Obviously Houston is one of those, but from the Big 12 perspective, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Kansas State are the 3 that Oklahoma miss, and I think most people aren't going to be too heartbroken that Oklahoma is missing Kansas State, just because of the recent struggles that Oklahoma has had with them. But you've got 3 of the potential stronger teams from a Big 12 perspective over the last few years. Texas Tech obviously is made a big jump in the first season under Joey McGuire, and then Baylor and Kansas State kind of obviously they know what they represent. A little bit of a down year for Baylor this year as opposed to where they were the previous year, but Kansas State was one of the better teams in the country, certainly from a Big 12 championship perspective. So yeah, I think the thing that's interesting, I think the most interesting to me, Mark, is that the ending to this season for Oklahoma, the tail end, is a little bit difficult when you think of going to Stillwater. Then you host West Virginia, then you go to BYU, and then on Black Friday, TCU comes to Norman, as well as would continue to expect that TCU still will kind of pick up where they left off to a certain degree. Maybe not necessarily quite as successful of a season, but still, I think it's a really it's challenging in certain ways. Going to Stillwater's always a tough situation, and then I think going to BYU is something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, but I think that was one of the matchups that we had discussed. I think that would be interesting for Oklahoma late in the year. You never know what that weather's going to look like, and in Provo, Utah, if that's a later kick, and some of the elevation situations that you come into with playing out there, that's a little bit different than obviously regionally based. But yeah, no, I think it's certainly a good schedule. Exciting. I think it's exciting to see Oklahoma and all these other teams play some of these teams that they don't normally play. Like I said, Oklahoma. I haven't dissected it in detail to look and see. I see Texas specifically. They only play. It looks like they're playing Houston and BYU. Those are the only two new members that they play. So interesting to see just what the balance looks like across the conference, and I think it's exciting to get it started for a year or however long it ends up being, a couple of years.